No, you're not. You're just on your way. If you forget who you are, oh, you're just a little strange. When what you see ain't what you saw, something's on its way. If what you think ain't what you thought, oh, well, someone's about to change. It's a big, big world on a tiny ball. Spin so quick so you don't fall off.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. My name is Reverend Elizabeth Rowley, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm a staff minister here at the center, and I'm outreach, so I live in San Luis Obispo, and I get to come over here at least twice a year. And I just had a conversation with Billy, and so Billy would like to have me be here more often. So I'm committing to that. Maybe I can do 4 times a year, at least once a quarter would be wonderful. But nevertheless, it's fantastic to be here with you today. Let me just look at all of you and see you. Hi, welcome. Familiar faces and some new faces, which is wonderful. Yeah. Hey. Okay. And thank you so much to our videographer, as Paul said, and our sound, Mark. We've got Mark and Joe and all the volunteers and the practitioners and ministers who are holding the consciousness here. It's so wonderful. We've got a great center, and I can just feel it. You know, I felt it when I got into the parking lot. There's just so much love and family here. So thank you for being that. It's wonderful. I saw a funny meme this week on Facebook, and it said, they say we attract what we fear. So, oh my God, I'm so scared of $10.6 billion. Ah. I thought that was a great opener for the monthly theme this month, which is financial health and prosperity. And the value is that we express order and balance in our finances and experience optimal financial well-being through the richness of our teaching and its application. We value the principle of abundance and its expression as prosperity as a means to provide resources to empower our personal and collective vision. Now say that back to me. Ha, just kidding. That's a mouthful. So today's topic is how to reverse financial adversity. And this is a great topic, and it's great for me, and it's like, if I can do it, so can you. And even if you're not experiencing financial adversity right now, there's going to be some things for you to think about. As my friend here, Paul, said, I like to give you things to think about and ways to increase the good that you're already experiencing in your life. And so I believe that there is a power, and we believe there's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. There's a power for good in the universe greater than you are, and you can use it. And not only can you use this power, you can use this power to overcome any seeming problem that you're experiencing in your life, and that includes financial adversity. There's a great quote from the Bible, speaking of the Bible and Jesus. I'm going to start off with Jesus. Go figure. Give and it shall be given to you. Pressed down, a good measure, shaken together and running over. I just love that. I love that quote. And so moving on to stewardship. So financial stewardship is so important for us. And the definition of stewardship is to supervise, keep order, to manage, look after, It's the careful and responsible management of something entrusted into one's care. And so we can be great stewards of our finances and great stewards of our center, great stewards of our marriage or partnership, our families, our homes, our jobs, all of it, right? So to be a great steward or to be a steward is to care and to manage, have control of, not to be super controlling, necessarily, but to have control of, like you have a handle, you got a grip. And it's about conserving, directing, guarding, and upkeep. And then I looked up the antonyms for stewardship, which are super important also. The antonyms are neglect, squander, spend, and ignorance. And so this really touched me because it was like, wow, thankfully in the past, I've definitely had an experience of squandering my money. Just squandering and buying things that I didn't really need. I think one of the big things for me was books, and I'm not sure why, but I just would keep buying books and books. You can find me, where's Elizabeth? She's at the bookstore in the spiritual section, just looking for books. I love books, and I'm actually working on writing a book now. So it is a good thing to buy books, but just not so many. So definitely in the past, I spent more than I had. And I remember there was a time when I was actually ignoring my bills, thinking that ignoring them would make them go away. And if I ignored them and thought about prosperity, somehow God would come in and save the day and pay them all off miraculously. Well, yeah, that could happen, but you've got to be a good steward, is what I've learned. And so being a good steward is very important. But also very important is that we have to stop our doubt and fear and retelling of our adversity or our problems. Sometimes there could be a problem in our life, and we'll call our friends and we'll talk about the problem, and it's like, hey, can you believe that? No. Well, yeah, well, how about you? Can you believe this person? Blah, blah, blah. Or can you believe, and just going on and on, complaining about the problem. And it's okay to talk about what's happening and talk about your feelings, of course, but we don't want to keep perpetuating that, especially when it comes to money. And so I have a great story that I would like to share with you about stewardship and being grateful and what happens when we become fearful. Paul's crawling around down there. Okay. You didn't see that. Okay, thanks. You keep an eye on him, yeah. So this is the parable of the talents. How many of you have heard the parable of the talents? Okay, great. Not many of you. All right. So just so you know, this is a paraphrased and slightly modernized version of it. Okay, I'm not quoting the Bible exactly. It's paraphrased. So there is a businessman, and actually the talent, let me tell you what a talent is too. So in the biblical days, a talent is a unit of measure, like their version of money. They didn't have $20 bills or $100 bills like we do today. So this was their unit of measure. And a talent is actually a huge amount. It's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So there's a businessman, and he is going to leave and go on a trip. And he calls in 3 of his trusted employees to have a conversation with them and let them know, I'm going on this trip and I'm going to be gone for like 2 or 3 months, and I really need you to take care of these portfolios that I have. And so he gives them each talents according to their capability, And so to the first one, he gives 5 talents. And then to the second one, he gives 2 talents. And to the third person, he gives 1 talent. And then he goes on his trip, and he's like, okay, now take care of these talents, and I want to come back and have there be more. And so he goes on his trip, and he comes back, and then when he gets back, so the man with the 5 talents goes out, and he's like super excited, and he goes out and he's making deals and talking to people, and he makes a trade, and he ends up doubling his talents. And then the man with the 2 talents does the same thing. He doubles his talents. But the man with the one talent goes out in the back and digs a hole and buries the talent and covers it back up because he's afraid of losing this one talent. He only has one. And so he only has one. What is he going to do if he loses that one? He'll have none. And then what? So and then the businessman comes back and he calls his 3 people in and says, okay, how did it go? And the one with the 5 says, oh, I did great. I went out and I traded and I was able to double my 5 and now I have 10. And he says, oh, that's great. Wonderful. Fabulous. And then the one with the 2 says the same thing. I went out, I traded and I doubled it and now I've got 4 and it's so wonderful. And then the one with the 1 says, well, I didn't do so well. I was actually really afraid that if I gave this one away, I wouldn't have anything. And then you would be upset with me. And so I didn't know what to do. And I just buried it in the ground out of fear. And the man said, oh, that's not good. That doesn't seem like what I wanted you to do. And so if we can look at it from the perspective of modern times and really, like if you're doing a job for somebody, they have an expectation of you. They don't expect you to go hide what you're supposed to do and pretend like, it's not, and just not do it. That doesn't work. And so he says, well, I'm sorry, but since you didn't do anything with that, I'm going to take your 1 talent and give it to this other person that has the 10 talents. So the 10 talents now has 11 talents. So all this talk about talents, I know it's hard to follow. The point is, at the end, the moral of this story is, to she who has, much is given. But to she who doesn't have, even that which she has will be taken from her. And so this is where we really look at our gratitude practice, right? This is where we can see the effect that could have. So if we are grateful for what we have, even if it's in our eyes that we don't have much or whatever, be grateful for what it is, because it is mighty and magnificent. But if you're sitting there saying, oh, this suit's okay, I wish I had a better one, and not really grateful for what you have in your life, then even what you have will be taken from you. That's what that means. And so what was powerful for me in this parable is the fear. So the person is afraid that they're going to give what they have away and then it's not going to double, or he's not going to have anything. And so it paralyzes him. And I believe that this could be what we do in our finances. We can, for me, I definitely in the past have gone to this place of, oh my gosh, I've got all these bills and it's compounding, and I start thinking about all the bills that I have and I'm constricting, and I can feel the thoughts constricting my energy, and it just, there's just no really wiggle room to get into gratitude and all the prosperity that is ours by our birthright. So we've got to discontinue right away the sharing of the stories of our adversity and begin telling stories of our truth. And Ernest Holmes is so wonderful in Living the Science of Mind textbook. He calls it loosing the consciousness. And he says, good and more good is mine. An ever-increasing good is mine. There is no limit to the good which is mine. Everywhere I go, I see this good. I feel it. I experience it. It crowds itself against me. It flows through me, expresses itself in me, and multiplies itself around me. And so, how do we get past the fear? So for many of us, the fear around money can be deeply held and unconscious. It could be something from so long ago. They're usually fears that are based in the past and a product of our conditioning or our upbringing or beliefs that were planted, like seeds that will grow in consciousness from the people that we were hanging out with at that time, whatever we were born into, whatever the consciousness of the race was when we were born, which is different for all of us, yes? So how do we get past that? How do we uncover them and then free ourselves from them? I believe it's, first of all, we do it very carefully. And we do it with practice and courage. It takes practice. Practice, practice, practice. And that practice for dissipating the fear is to face it. What is that fear? What is it? What is it? What is that thing that is standing in the way? Now, I've always been rather fearless myself. At least I thought so. I've done my share of things that many people would consider to be fearful, like skydiving and bungee jumping and class 4 whitewater rafting. And I rode my bike from San Francisco to Los Angeles 4 times. It took 7 days each time, and it was 565 miles. It's wild, right? And I remember hiking, so many epic hiking adventures in Yosemite, Half Dome and Yosemite Falls. And I even hiked Mount Whitney in a day, if you can believe that. It took, 22 and a half hours of hiking. Been there, done that, bought the t-shirt, won't be doing that again. But I have to tell you that when I tried the flying trapeze for the first time, this is when I really learned the effects of fear on my mind and body. And that's what I want to share with you here. So picture the scene. I get into the flying trapeze place. They actually have these places. Yes, there's a place called Trapeze Arts in Oakland. And so I get there and I've got to pay $45, and they tell me that, you're going to learn all of this in about an hour, and then pretty soon you will fly through the air with the greatest of ease. You'll be the daring and dashing young lady on the flying trapeze. It's like, okay, I know. Thank you. And so we go, and there's a group of us, and we're sitting there, and the woman comes up and she starts to explain it to us, and she basically has like 2 or 3 minutes of nonstop talking. Like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this and this and that, and then the bar's going to come up, and I'm going to say blah, 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 right? And I can feel the lump rising up in my throat. Like, am I supposed to remember all of this? I can't even remember what you just said. Oh my goodness. And then it's like, okay, just go with the flow here. It's going to be okay. And soon it was my turn. And they have this bucket of chalk. And so I chalk up my hands. And then there's this narrow ladder, just like in the cartoons. And you got to climb up the ladder to the tippy top. And there's a platform at the top with 2 people. And one person is on this side, one person on this side, and they both strap you into your harness, the safety harness, right? And the one on the right will reach this pole out and grab the trapeze bar and bring it back. And then they have you put one hand on the trapeze bar, and then they have you hold the platform rafter pole with your other hand. And so there I am. She's taking a picture. So there I am, ready, but not really ready. I've got all this stuff in my mind that she shared with me, but rest assured, she's going to be down at the bottom explaining to me, guiding me step by step the entire time. So I should be okay with this. And so I'm standing there and I'm ready. And then the next thing that happens is there's a person out on the other side somewhere, and they say listo, and listo means ready. You can remember that as a little buzzword for yourself. Listo. And so they shout that, listo. And then when they say ready, I'm supposed to take this hand off and grab the bar. So now I've got both hands. I kind of like bend my knees and get into the position. And then the person does the last check, and they check me out. And I'm all, clipped in, and I'm terrified, right? You can imagine. I'm just like, what am I doing? Whose idea was this? I'm ready though. And then they say HEP. And when they say HEP, I'm supposed to step off of the platform into thin air and hang on to this trapeze bar and fly through the air. So they say, and then the woman's going to be guiding me. Okay, put your legs over the bar now, because there's physics, involved. Like there's a certain time that you put your legs over the bar where you're going with gravity and it's easy. Anyway, so I go and she starts saying things, but all I hear is wah, 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 wah. Like literally. And that's all I heard. And I was like shaking my head, trying to come to or something, but it just wasn't happening. But finally I heard, okay, let go of the bar and fall into the net. And then it was like, she wants me to do what? Then I gotta let go of the bar? There's so many spiritual lessons in this. But the one that I really want to focus on is the part about the fear, right? So I was terrified. Finally, I let go and fell to the net. And then I got up and crawled over to the edge of the net. I was trembling. I was just shaking. I was terrified. And I turned over, got off, and had like sea legs, and I went and sat down, and I just sat there for a little bit, tried to get my composure back. But I was really present to, wow, I didn't even know that I had that fear. This has been fear of heights, fear of the unknown, whatever. But I was just so present to, who knew that fear did that? Like it gripped me mentally. It took over my body and I couldn't hear what she was saying. And I knew that she was there to help me, but I wasn't able to hear it. And so the point of that is, how do we do that in our own lives? It could be that she was offering me like giant bars of gold and treasure, but I couldn't hear it because of the fear. And so fine, okay, my turn again. There's like 10 of us and you take turns, you go through. So I go back up. Thank you. I go back up and then and I try it again, and this time I'm a little bit better and I can actually hear what she's saying. It's clear. There's actually words coming out of her mouth. And I mess up a little bit, but I get through it, and then I get off and wait my turn again and come back, and this time I've got it, right? And then the next turn I'm going to actually fly, and there's going to be a person over there that catches me and I've got to let go. So profound. It's powerful. I'm going to write a book. I'm telling you, this is good stuff. I love it. But anyway, so I did it, and it was like an hour and a half, $45. Now I'm a professional flying trapeze person. Thank you. That's not it though. So the whole thing about that is, fear can grip us. When it does, it shuts us down and it can affect our performance, and we're unable to see things. We're unable to see our good. And so the invitation is to face our fears. So if you have fear around your finances, you can look at that and look at your finances and really investigate and see what that's all about. And if you can't name it or pinpoint what the fear is, just come back and look at your finances again. For me, when I got into relationship recently, there was fear when we were looking at our spending plan together, and it was like, what is that about? And I didn't know, but it was just this reaction thing would happen. It was based in the past. And thankfully, my beloved is so patient with me. And then we just do it again, And the next time it comes up a little. And then the next time it's like, what was I even afraid of? There was nothing. It was like the wah, 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 You just got to keep doing it over and over. That's the practice piece. And so, the final point that I want to address is tithing and giving as an act of faith. We can practice tithing and giving as an act of faith to overcome our fear. And it could be a fear of losing money, a fear of not having enough money or not being enough, and so on. Just like the one in the parable of the talents who was fearful of that. And it's important to remember that we're not practicing this principle so that we can get more. We're actually practicing the principle so that we can know God better, so that we can begin to cultivate our faith and our trust in the thing itself, which in our teaching includes love and law as the one who walks through all feet. So we can use these spiritual principles to get closer to the divine. And to have a closer experience of it and less experience of the fear and the doubts and the worries and the wah, 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 wah. So I was looking at the origin of tithing, and it's in the Bible. There's no mention of tithing in the Science of Mind textbook, which is interesting, but it's a powerful principle. And so the tithing started, I believe, with Abraham, and it was 450 years before the law of Moses went into effect. And then at that time, there was a 10% tithe. And then it was even questionable. It was like 10%, and then it was 13%, and then for some it was 22%. And then it wasn't like 10% what we consider today. Like if I get $50, I'm going to tithe $5 as 10%, right? It was, back in the day, they were talking about 10% of your best whatever. So you could get land, you might get cattle or livestock, or you might be a farmer and have all this great produce. You were giving 10% of your very best crop or livestock or whatever. And so that is kind of the number that we are looking at, 10%, not kind of, it is the number we're looking at, 10% today. And it's holy. And so I want to share that I'm currently giving 5%. So you have to be a good steward of your money, right? You've got to be a good steward of your money, because if you're not, then you're going to get into trouble. And so I have a commitment, though, to increase my tithe as we go along. But I took a year off of ministry, and then I realized I wasn't giving at all. I was working avidly to pay back some debt that I had incurred from some choices that I made as the result of poor stewardship of my money. And I often felt worried about how I was going to make ends meet, and it seemed like the bills were just adding up, one on top of the other. I couldn't stop thinking about the compounding items in my mind and worrying. How am I going to pay this? And it's just like the law of attraction kicks in, and you start thinking more and more about that, feeling myself constricting inside. And I remembered I had stopped giving. And so immediately I started giving 5%, and I noticed a shift immediately in my thinking. Immediately. I went from worrying about it, which is the autopilot, reactive thinking of fear, doubt, and worry, from all of those thoughts to something more like this. Okay, God, I'm giving money, and I'm practicing principle here, and it's really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable. And so if I wasn't sure how I was going to make the ends meet before, now I'm really not sure. And I'm turning it over to you, God. I just got to surrender. I'm letting go of the how, and I'm turning it over to you. So do your thing. It's like a command to the universe. Let's make this happen. I trust you, God. It's up to you. And then so suddenly, out of nowhere, I started receiving phone calls and booking clients out of the blue. And I made like $3,000 in extra income over the course of about 3 months. It's about $1,000 a month, which is amazing. And I'm sharing this with you because it's a real experience that I had. And so I was like, okay, so it works. A great reminder, sometimes we forget that these things work. And so if anyone is having an experience of that, it's time to unkink that hose and start giving, and allow yourself to practice that and get to know God. It becomes a beautiful experience to be able to share that with this invisible presence, the thing itself. And so there's a power for good that is greater than you are, and you can use it. Okay. I think that's all I've got. So I'm currently giving 5%, and I plan to increase it by 1% in January and an additional 1% each month until I get to 10%. And by June, I will be fully flexing my faith in the abundance of the universe muscle, and I promise to report back to you how that's going. I imagine it will be good and very good. And it's like electricity, you know, if you were complaining to me that you needed and wanted to do all of these things, but you couldn't do it because it was dark at your house, and I came to your house and I showed you that flipping on the light switch could give you light, would you try it? Yes. So there you go. I encourage you to try it, and you can try it, and if it doesn't work, fine. But I guarantee you it will work. Guaranteed. So there's a power for good in the universe greater than I am, and I can use it, and I do use it. So I invite you to consider, as you go forth from here, what is one thing that you can commit to doing today to bring order to your finances? What is one thing that you can commit to doing? It could be you open up your wallet and clean it out. That means organizing your cards and your bills and everything, the change. Or maybe your purse has a bunch of change and money strewn about. You can clean that out. Maybe it's creating a budget or a spending plan, or creating future goals, investment ideas, and researching a possibility like that. Balancing your checkbook is another one. Can you all commit to doing one of those? Yes. All right. Okay, so let's pray. So we turn our attention inward in this moment now, returning to that beautiful, expansive space within, which is the space where I know that God is all that there ever was, all that there ever will be, and all that there ever is right here and right now. And I'm so very grateful to know that this presence is in me and in each individual here collectively as one. Each one of us, God in form. And I'm so very grateful to remember that the presence of God is in this very room, and it's palpable. I feel it, I sense it, and I know that it wants us to succeed. It wants us individually and collectively to have all that we need in our lives to fulfill our purposes and our dreams and our highest and best good. And so we practice our faith in the abundance of the universe, knowing that good and more good is mine, and ever increasing good is mine, that there is no limit to the good which is mine. And we take this consciousness out from here and multiply it and magnify it, giving as we are called and allowing the divine to make itself known and seen in our lives. And if I was looking for a sign, this is it. This is the sign. This is what we are going forward with. We are going to have the best week ever. And I'm grateful for this. And so I just say thank you, God, thank you, life, as I release this prayer out into that loving action of the law, knowing it is done. And I invite you to help me anchor this truth by saying with me, and so it is. Yes.